There is something called tween curves that I wanted to show you. Here I have two curves on the XY axis. So you select the first curve and the second curve, and I'm going to type in tween curves. And you can see, depending on where I select it, it's going to tween them. You can change the number here. So I could say 44, for example. And you'll see that it gradually goes from an arc to a straight line and creates a tween in between those curves. I can also do that. Let's just join these. I can do that with two closed curves. So tween curves, start curve, end curve. And you can see I chose that corner. Let's do that again, but this time choose this midpoint. And you'll see that we'll have different results here. I think this can be interesting for 2D work, but it also is really interesting for tween work with within 3 dimensions. So let's tween curve again, start curve, end curve, and you can see this also changes according to which point we choose here. There is something called tween curves that I wanted to show you. Here I have two curves on the XY axis. So you select the first curve and the second curve, and I'm going to type in tween curves. And you can see, depending on where I select it, it's going to tween them. You can change the number here. So I could say 44, for example. And you'll see that it gradually goes from an arc to a straight line and creates a tween in between those curves. I can also do that. Let's just join these. I can do that with two closed curves. So tween curves, start curve, end curve. And you can see I chose that corner. Let's do that again, but this time choose this midpoint. And you'll see that we'll have different results here. I think this can be interesting for 2D work, but it also is really interesting for tween work with within 3 dimensions. So let's tween curve again, start curve, end curve, and you can see this also changes according to which point we choose here. I'll show you another quick trick with tween curves that's kind of fun and easy to use. So I have this sort of kidney bean shape here. First thing I'm going to do is just make a copy of it somewhere here. And now select these two. Tween the curves. Let's do a few more, 12. So now I have all these curves that are identical. And now I can select them all. Let's extrude, and let's make sure I have both sides and solid, and I'm not going to have my grid snap on. So let's go to the front view. And I'm going to just choose kind of a random thickness. And you can see that we quickly made several shapes in a line just using tween curves and extrude. Let's also do a quick review of Boolean Union. So here I have a box. Let's create a ellipsoid. And I'm going to use this as the center to the midpoint. And let's go to the front view. And select these two, Boolean Union, and that will create one shape. Something I wanted to point out, you might sometimes run into trouble when, for example, sometimes you don't totally see that these two are not touching, these two surfaces. So let's try a Boolean Union. This one, and you will see that it failed because the objects do not intersect. So make sure, and let's do that in ghosted. Oops, ghosted. Make sure that you actually properly intersect there, even if it's just a little bit. Now we can Boolean Union these two, and that will work. Okay, back to shaded. All right, let's move on to Boolean difference. Boolean difference. This is my surface, and these are the spheres I want to use. And you'll see you can create little indents there. You can also do this, or let's do this one real quickly. And similarly, if it's not touching, you'll see that it will fail. Make sure that your shapes are intersecting. Boolean difference. And there we go. Okay. Similarly, I'm not going to show that, but you could also use, actually, let's look at Boolean split. Boolean split. To split with this, and then you'll see, oops, that didn't work. Let's try that one more time. Make sure that's intersecting properly. Just going to move it down a little bit just to be sure. Boolean split. This is a surface I want to split, and I'm using this one here. And you'll see that we split the surface. Let's look at Wirecut. I have a few models here that I want to show you what's possible with Wirecut. Let's start here. This is one way we could create stairs. So let's type in Wirecut. This is my cutting curve. This is the object I want to cut. It's going to ask me for the first direction. So I'm going to make sure I have both sides. I want to cut through entirely. And then my second cutting direction is I'm going to go past this solid here. And when I'm done, you'll see that it removed that part. I could also, for example, if I didn't want to go through the entire object, this is my cutting curve. I want to cut this. Let's not do both sides. And I'm just going to go to round about here and up again. And you'll see that I cut just part of that section there. Here's another interesting method. I have a cylinder and I have these curves I joined. So let's do Wirecut again. This is my cutting curve, the object I want to cut. And let's do both sides so I can make sure I go all the way through. And say done. So I cut through that shape with this. Similarly, I could select this Wirecut. And I might just want to go, I'm going to delete the input this time, not both sides. Maybe I just want to go to there. So that's a handy one. Let's try it with this shape. So I have the sphere and I have a curve that's slightly in front of it. Wirecut. This is my cutting curve, my sphere. And yeah, I'm going to go all the way through and all the way up. Great. And that's Wirecut. Let's look a little at project. To project means to take some curves and project it onto geometry, such as a solid. let's do this first one. So the trick with project is to make sure that you are in the correct viewport. So if I want to project this onto this geometry, this curve onto this geometry, I have to be in the front view. So let's try that out, front view, and zoom in here. I'm going to grab this curve and type in project, and this is the surface I want to project on. And let's just press enter, and you'll see that it projected this throughout the cylinder. Let's do another one where we actually don't have the curve go all the way across. So let's go back to the front view. I'm just going to make a simple quick line, and let's move that up and over. So let's see what happens this time. So project, go to the front view, and done. So what happens this time is it makes a copy in the back. It's essentially doing the same with the other curve, but because it was longer, it wrapped around, so you can see what happens here. And I could just delete that one if I didn't need it. Similarly, we have this circle here in front of the cylinder. Let's project that in the front view, and you'll see that it projected all the way through. So what happens if we have a circle that is not, that's sort of, you know, above here, front, project onto the surface, done. Let's just move this away, and you'll see that the area of the circle above the cylinder gets translated as a line through that cylinder, and this is one curve, which I could then split, etc. But there might be a reason why I want to use this to split and take that little bit out there. Similarly here, let's project this circle onto this rectangle here, and you'll see that, just delete that, the parts that went past the box are projected as a straight line. Let's move over here. So let's say I was building a tower or something, and I wanted to project a door. It would be hard for me to sort of, if I wanted this to follow the shape of the cylinder, I want to project it. So let's do that real quickly. So project front view onto the surface, go back to our perspective, and you'll see that it did project into the back too, but I might not want that, so let's delete that one. And then of course I could do things like pull this out and extrude all the way through, or actually not all the way through, maybe into about there. I use a Boolean split, and then you'll see that we use that projection to Boolean split that that piece of geometry. The command round hole is simply a round hole that you can create on a surface. So first thing I'm going to do is create a few guidelines here on this box. Let's make a few more. Okay, and a round hole. The target surface is this top, and then I can, with my intersection, I can just make a hole here and here. Let's do that for now. And you can see that it just made a hole, not all the way through. If I want to make all the way through, I'm going to type round hole. This is my target. And press through, and you'll see that it just made a hole all the way through that target surface. Let's do that again. I just want to show you can select another surface. So this time I'm going from this side. I don't want to go through. So you see I can choose any of these sides. Let's do that one more time. Oops, that one didn't work. Let's try that one more time. There we go. Similarly, here I have an ellipse, and I'll just quickly show you how I got these curves. We'll cover that in a bit as well, but selected my solid and I am going to extract iso curves right here. It's telling me I can extract it in the U direction or the V direction. Let's do U, and I'm just going to make a couple of curves here. So now these curves, you extracted the iso curves and they're separate from the iso curves, but they follow the curve of this ellipsoid nice and tightly so that I can use those as guidelines. So now with my round hole, this is my target surface, and then I can just snap onto those and make a couple of quick holes like that. One more time, and let's do through. And that will go all the way through that geometry. Great. Array hole is, so I've already created a hole here. Array hole, select a hole. Here's my hole. 1, 2, 3, 4. Let's do 6 in the A direction and maybe 2 in the B direction. The base point, I'm going to select the quadrant and choose our distance. And that's how you would quickly array holes. Similarly with array polar, let's do that again. Array hole polar. This is the hole. The center, I have my center snap on, and let's make 9 at a 360 degree, and we're done.